Thank you. So I will now call back to order the regular meeting of the Lake Forest Community High School Board of Education for May 14th, 2018. May I have a roll call, please?
Here.
Here.
Mr. Mormon? Here. Mrs. Kreiling?
Here.
Mr. Markison?
Here.
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Dr. Nevekis?
Here.
Did I call you Mr. Mormon? Yes. Okay. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll skip the president's report and get right to the superintendent's report. Mike?
All right, thank you, Mr. Markson, and I will hand off to Dr. Holland.
So I'm super excited to welcome our two students who we're going to highlight this month. The first student that I would like to call up to the podium is William Steck. William was selected to receive the 13th Annual Excellence in Character Award for the 2017-2018 school year. The program is sponsored by Character Matters in Lake County and is put on by the Lake County Regional Office of Education and the Youth Empowerment for Success Coalition. William was recommended by the principal and other teachers in the building, and this award signifies that William is a positive role model to others and has contributed in meaningful ways to the school community. And so this is only the 13th time this has been offered, and it's out of the entire Lake County region. So I want to commend William for being such an excellent student. Everyone knows him in the building. He does so much around the school and is such a positive force within the school.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask William just to share a little bit about his time at Lake Forest High School and some of the highlights during his time as a student.
Well, thank you, everybody, for having me here tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to stand before all of you. I've spent a lot of time at our high school over the years, a lot. I haven't had more than 2 weeks off from our high school in 4 years because I'm there during the summertime. So my only break really is winter break. But that time, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I have had the tremendous opportunity of getting to know countless faculty members, department chairs, the custodians, just basically everybody, administrators. And my relationships with them are something that I just can't put a price on. And it's something that, as I look towards a four-year college, was something that was really, really important to me, that I was going to have those same kinds of relationships with everybody on campus. And so I've really just kind of been fortunate enough to meet all those people, and then at the same time have those people help me in situations like uniting the student section this past year with the band program. I would not have been able to do that without the help of the administration, the dean's department, the faculty, the students, everybody involved. So I feel like my success is really because of them. So I want to thank them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
The next student I would like to highlight is Thomas Dixon. For the first time in the history of Lake Forest High School, we're going to have our first dance marathon, and Thomas is the brainchild behind it. Every day, I hear something positive about Thomas from many people across the building. He has so many ideas about making the school better, and he's an open advocate and a willing person to make things happen. He doesn't just sit back and say, this could be better, this could be better. He actually does the work. And so I wanted to highlight Thomas just because this is a huge undertaking. And he's been working with our student activities director and other students, as well as other administrators, to make this a possibility. So I wanted to highlight Thomas and ask him to share a little bit about his story and how this came about.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Education, my name is Thomas Dixon. I'm a junior at Lake Forest High School. I am speaking tonight talking about the inaugural Lake Forest High School Dance Marathon. But first, let me tell you my story. My entire life, I was constantly sick, cycling between mixtures of sinus infections, colds, pneumonia, and battling what my family and I thought was asthma. My freshman year, after having been sick for a period of 3 months, my mom and I decided to find out what was truly the cause of my chronic cough. After 3 months of seeing every type of doctor, my mother and I finally visited Dr. Lasker in pulmonology at Lurie Children's. He mentioned several potential diseases that we needed to rule out, including tuberculosis and ciliary dyskinesia. After rounds of tests the next day, I was told that I had cystic fibrosis, a genetic disease that I've had my entire life. I was put in the hospital for 2 weeks battling the infection in my lungs that was causing my pulmonary function, a test to see how well one can breathe, to be around 41%. An average adult is around 110%. It didn't set in until a year after getting out of the hospital how lucky I was to be alive and how incredible the care was that I received at Lurie Children's. I was asked to speak at an event for Lurie's. I spoke at the Founders Board Pro-Am dinner last June and helped raise nearly $450,000 for the hospital's medical research. It was at that night that I realized I truly wanted to make a difference. Last fall, after telling my mother that I wanted to help find a cure for cystic fibrosis, we came up with the idea to have a dance marathon, which is something that she participated in college when she attended Northwestern University, where she raised money for, peculiarly enough, cystic fibrosis. This past January, I went to my dean, Mrs. Tomek, and told her of my idea for this dance marathon. She loved the idea and told me quickly to organize a committee so that we could get the event rolling. We reached out to Lurie Children's Hospital and are now a part of Children's Miracle Network, a coalition of 300 fundraisers spanning North America to help children's hospitals. So after 5 months of organizing the event, we are finally here. I'm happy to say that this Saturday, May 19th, here at West Campus, Lake Forest High School will be having its first inaugural dance marathon. This year, we will be raising money to help find a cure for Lurie Children's Hospital and their ongoing effort to research and find a cure for cystic fibrosis. I appreciate the support of the team at Lake Forest High School and the opportunity to share my story with you tonight. Thank you.
So for everyone listening and everyone watching, make sure for all students, you go on our school website and sign up for the dance marathon. We'll all be here on Saturday, ready to have a good time and raise money for a very important cause. Thank you, Thomas.
4 hours,
Yeah, how long do you expect it to run?
like Northwestern?
So it's 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. The aim is to raise around $25,000 for Lurie Children's Hospital. And yeah, I'll come out. Registration is on the website, as Dr. Holland said, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Do we donate on the website as well?
Yes, so there's a link on the website to our personal Children's Miracle Network website page where you can input a credit card or whatever. And then you can either donate to the event specifically, or we also have the students have their own personalized pages where they can set their own goals for how much they want to raise for the event. And then the top 3 people who raise the most money for the event will win 4-day passes to Lollapalooza. So that's the goal for everybody. 4-day passes.
He's amazing at fundraising. He's reached out to all these organizations to get those donations.
Yeah.
And Reese, it's only for students.
Well, it's singles at the moment. We're not really going to do couples, but we also have done teams. So like we've reached out to pretty much all the sports teams. They're all pretty much going to come and help raise money to fund a cure. Thank you. Huh? Sorry? It's the gym right downstairs. Yeah.
You have to join. If you come watch, I'm going to pull you on the dance floor.
Ted, I thought you were going to do your DJ skills for the...
So next I'm going to pass it to Trish and Drew, and just to acknowledge them, this is their last board meeting with us. So thank you for all of your work.
Good evening, everyone. We're really excited to be here. We're kind of sad it's our last one, and we just wanted to give some last updates with the school year ending. So on student council related events, this past weekend was prom. The theme was a night in New York, and it was extremely fun. We had a lot of students come out, and our prom parade was actually inside, but despite the weather, everyone had a really great time. We are also doing a fundraiser that partners with a school in Vietnam. On the school website, there is also a link to another webpage, and we're trying to incorporate everybody in the school, not just student council members, to reach out and donate money more than tangible items because it's much easier to send. And we're really hoping that students choose to get involved with that. And then actually right now, for the 2018-2019 school year, the student council elections are going on. So, you know, Drew and I will be replaced pretty soon.
Their election videos are actually due tomorrow morning. So on May 1st, we had our E-Day walk, which you guys will get into later. It was really nice. We had some food trucks. Everyone had a good time. It was a beautiful day. And then the day before that, April 30th, we moved it up to celebrate our college decision day. Everyone had their shirts on, another beautiful day. Everyone was excited to see where we would be spending our time after we graduate. AP week was last week and this week, so everyone's having a good time studying and getting ready for those. And spring sports, some of them are winding down and heading towards playoffs. Tennis and track both had conference last weekend. Badminton had state, and our teams have been really successful so far.
And then on top of that, next week we have our choir, band, and orchestra concerts. So those are always really fun. The spring concerts are a great way to kind of see the seniors and all the 4 years that they've been involved. And besides that, we're just really grateful to be able to have come these past year and be able to tell you guys what's been going on in the school and hear what's going around in the community. So thank you.
Irreplaceable. We'll tell your...
I'll pass that off to Mike.
Right? Okay, and I have a bit of happy and sad news. So Will is actually the last of the stacks that we're going to have come through here, at least in this generation. And we're happy that it happened, but sad that it's going to be over soon. And the same thing for Tom. Tom's the caboose and his family as well, and two families that we've been really, really thrilled to have your children here, and obviously great contributors, each of them, to the betterment of the community and the school. So I mean that very sincerely as well, so thank you each. So the superintendent's report today, we have one more year with Thomas, so we're not running you off yet, right? Okay, with Tom. Superintendent's report, I wanted to address something that has been bubbling around a little bit in the community, in particular among a few of the realtors. So one of the things that I wanted to touch on is how our students are doing on standardized tests. So more than half of our seniors take an AP course, and of those, nearly 100%, 97% of those taking an AP test passed them. This was a 3, a 4, or a 5, and if they go to in-state Illinois college, they are guaranteed to get college credit for that. We have 3 times as many kids in BC Calculus today as we did in 2012, and every single kid that took the BC Calculus test last year passed that with a 5, and that's a pattern of behavior in that class. Yet, U.S. News came out this week and said 3% of our math kids are proficient. And this is the same cohort of kids that 3 years later averaged 26.3 on their ACT score. The national average is a 21, and the difference between those things is absolutely enormous. So we are unranked according to U.S. News, and other schools that are unranked are any number of high-performing schools in the region, including New Trier, and a number of schools that we consider to be our peer school districts. So how in the world can that happen? This is a little bit of a window into the vagaries of the ranking organizations. So 3 words you need to remember relative to this are PARCC and the Common Core. And our students, we have a large number of students here. Remember the high school PARCC? I got some looks because I think they know what's coming. And so U.S. News actually chose to use the PARCC scores to rank our district schools. And so why is that important? Because there are 4 steps in the U.S. News process. In order to get to steps 2, 3, and 4, you had to do well on the PARCC. So we're drawn to rankings, and this is what Park wound up looking like. They tested students in Algebra 1. And that was a 15-16 school year, and the Park the high school Park applied only to students in Algebra 1. That's it. 70% of our students as freshmen took classes, geometry, advanced algebra, whatever it was, beyond Algebra 1. And so there's no benefit to us in this ranking system that US News chose to have students that are accelerated beyond the norm. The norm in Common Core, and then that's what Park was assessing, the norm across the nation is for 8th graders to be in pre-algebra and 9th graders to be in algebra. The norm around here is for students to not be in algebra in 9th grade, not by a long shot. So it's aligned to the Common Core, and many of you may remember the skepticism in this community relative to both the Common Core and also the Park testing. We even had meetings at the Gorton Center for parents gathering to express concern. We were one of a small number of communities in the region, Winnetka being another, where they actually had public meetings on these things. And that impacted how many students came and took the test. So of the small percentage of the students that were in Algebra 1, less than half of them came on that day. It was a late start day, and we had many, many phone calls from parents saying, look, my kid is not going to come in. You're going to take the morning off. And among those who did take the test, there was a rampant amount of, call it not serious test taking going on that day, which resulted in the 3%. So there's a lot of conversation that superintendents had with state officials relative to Park at the high school level in particular. And that if you're going to ask our high school students to take something, it better be linked to something that they find a significant amount of value in, whether that be the SAT or the ACT. Our students obviously took the ACT seriously 3 years later. It's the college entrance exam. So Park, the ongoing conversation with superintendents, with the State Board of Ed, were that, look, it's not going to be used for college placement in any way, nor will the Park be used for college entrance. You're going to have a problem with the viability of these test results. And unfortunately, it took several years for the state to recognize. The state has now dropped the Park entirely at the high school level. An additional fact relative to Park, one of the reasons that schools had a hard time taking it seriously themselves was that the state made many promises about, yes, this test is going to work, this test is, we are going to have the results back to you, your teachers are going to be able to use them. We got the results in a different school year, making all the results completely, really meaningless for our educators as well. So you can't make this stuff up, unfortunately. The reality is that there are some people that pay attention to these rankings. This is a very clear case of a ranking organization using a metric that really does not have bearing on the quality of our school, doesn't reflect the quality of our school. They will be changing that in years ahead. We've voiced our concern, as others have, but school districts in the region, I met with a group of superintendents today, and overwhelmingly in each of the school districts is like, they use what? They use the Park? Oh, yeah, that's gone anyway. And so they'll be winding up using an SAT probably in the future. But that is still in the stars, so that is the superintendent's report. Any questions?
Yeah, a couple things, Mike. I mean, how are we, I mean, I know there's hundreds of thousands of people watching at home, and we'll see this report, but how are we going to communicate this to the community at large, that this was a flawed ranking?
Well, that's one of the questions that we have. We'll get back with, if you communicate this to the community at large, one of the things that you may that you wind up doing is drawing attention to this flawed metric rather than communicating to the individuals. The individuals that have gotten with us, we'll get back to them. If we...
Realtors, I mean, this goes into,
Right.
Zillow rankings and all kinds of things that, so how do we combat it? How do we communicate what
we
what
will
our
be-
real math proficiency is, what our real ACT scores are, what our...
Yeah, we'll be communicating with the realtors tomorrow on this. I've gotten one email from a community resident. I've had an exchange with him. I'll send him the link to this report. There's a mixed bag. If you put it out there, hey, we're 3%, you just made an announcement that we're at 3%, and that winds up sticking. If you get back to the people that have communicated with you individually, then the risk there in terms of public relations is that you shape a narrative that's a negative one. And so there's a downside to a broadcast of that kind.
Talk about Common Core. How,
Okay, so the PARCC exam, there are two exams. PARCC was one, the Smarter Balance was another, and basically the nation divided in two, and states selected one of these accountability measures. Generally geographically, they wound up selecting that. The PARCC exam and the Smarter Balance Consortium created a test with data items that were linked to the Common Core standards. And that Common Core, the standards that the Common Core has in the case of math are illustrative, because the Common Core expectation is that our students are going to be in pre-algebra in 8th grade. And the test then is linked to testing those types of standards. The problem for us when they got to the high school was that some of our students had algebra 2 years earlier, some even 3 years earlier. They're not available for that test, and the communication that we had with the state at that time is, look, you're going to be assessing a tiny population, our student population, and among those you're going to be testing the students who struggle the most with math. And so you're going to get very, very inaccurate results.
So just following up on Reese's point, I mean, I understand you not wanting to draw attention to a flawed ranking system, but wouldn't this be a good time to put out a counter narrative about all our strengths and maybe to work with the realtors in some way to have something easily accessible? There's an awful lot of homes on the market this spring, and it'd be a good time to be very proactive about it.
Mrs. Whipple would like to join in here.
Yes, sorry. Jumped out of the back row, but let me add a little color commentary to this. I think there's a variety of strategies we're going to use in this. One of this is the video tonight, and it goes to every, as you know, in the board highlights, it'll go to every family, and we'll highlight that it's talking about the metrics that are used. We also will be sending, we have realtors newsletters, so this information will go to them, couched in a lot of our positive results. So it won't just be about the metrics. I think we need to talk about rankings in general, how rankings in general are flawed, and then this could certainly be a piece of it as well too, along with some of our other standardized testing and things that we do that actually our 98% of our kids are going on to college, the AP scores and things like that. So there's a little more information for them to use with their clients rather than just these rating scores too. The beauty of this tonight is we will have this little clip that we can use, and so they can actually see it and call for questions too. As Mike alluded to, anyone who's contacted us will certainly follow up with more detail. And we did lodge a complaint with U.S. News and World. We contacted them the day they came out, working with our administrators to really give them a cadre of questions as to how their results were formulated. So we do have that information.
Have they had a comment yet, U.S. News and World Report, on their methodologies?
Yes, they did comment back, and this was the information they gave us, but they certainly are not interested in changing or clarifying in any of their, they stand behind that the PARCC was a state assessment in those days, in that time frame, and that's what they're going to use. So, as Mike alluded to, there's quite a few other high-performing schools in the same boat. Not that it makes it right, but I think that tells a story about the rankings as well.
Could I just add, if you're putting out a narrative, I'll be talking about our education committee meeting, but The student engagement and extracurriculars and athletics is a real highlight of our school and the opportunities afforded by a small school. I hope it's not just academic metrics.
It is absolutely not. If you remember last year, we were the big school or small school with big school offerings, and Reese and I said that millions and millions of places. We're going to continue with that. Also, we have our Insight newsletter that will go out in June, and we will hit on all of this, not directly just highlighting U.S. News, but talking about where we really stand and a variety of metrics, which also do include social emotional. So.
Good. Thank you.
For Mike? Okay, thanks, Mike. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? None? Okay, we have a report on emotional wellness and our CSCI report from Patrick. John?
Okay, good evening. Thank you for having us. We'll be brief. It's a great opportunity to, on the heels of that, spend a few minutes focused on the activities and the efforts that have been put forth around well-being this year at Lake Forest High School in partnership with community agencies and kind of really look at the efforts that have taken place, the work that's been done, the happiness and the positive impact that has ensued. We'll talk a little bit tonight about kind of what some of our findings have been, and then some of our next steps. But we really want to focus on 4 areas where our wellness efforts are evident and aligned to social emotional learning standards in our curriculum, the school and community activities that took place this year, most recently the walk that John will speak to a little bit shortly, surveys that we administered and the data that we were able to tally and will be reviewing and looking for emerging themes, and then our ongoing professional development that our staff accesses and provides one another around these standards. Touching base just quickly on the curriculum, we've effectively infused Illinois State Board of Education social emotional standards into the freshman wellness curriculum. These goals are centered on using self-awareness and self-management strategies to establish and maintain healthy relationships and demonstrate responsible behaviors in all contexts. So there are myriad activities throughout the freshman year that the wellness curriculum touches on. John will speak to a couple of those when he talks about the activities that occurred this year. So these activities were part of the curriculum. They were also activities that took place this year in partnership with APT, with Erica's Lighthouse, with LEAD, Croya, the Art Impact Project, to name a few. And John will go in a little bit more depth on that in just a minute. I alluded to the 3 surveys that we administered this year, the Gallup poll, the Illinois Youth Survey, and the Comprehensive School Climate Inventory. John will provide some information on Gallup and the CSCI. We are awaiting our Illinois Youth Survey results in June or July. And then lastly, I'll just touch base on some of the professional development opportunities that took place this year in our building and outside of our building, and to highlight the power that those had for providing strategies to staff for creating safe, inclusive, and culturally responsive environments for all students.
Hi again, I'm John Maher, Assistant Director of Ed Services. So as Patrick was saying, and I think it was just brought up recently, we're going to talk a little bit more about the social emotional work that we're really doing in the school and how we're collecting data. Back in December, I did a presentation on the Gallup poll. So this is just kind of reminding us that once again, we've done 3 different surveys this year, the Gallup being the first one. We did it with our sophomores. Since it was the first time we did it, we decided to do it with one class. Out of nationally out of sophomores, we were engaged 55% of the time compared to nationally 32%. Also, being hopeful, we were 52% compared to 41% nationally. So really good positive numbers. There was more to that survey, but that's just kind of highlighting that where we feel like our students are, particularly the sophomore year, which is also a year that we've talked about in previous meetings, that we feel like we really want to start honing in a little bit more on. The CSCI, which we completed in January, a lot of strengths. We did not have one number fall into the negative range. We had a few numbers fall into the neutral range, and even those numbers were 3.5, which is the highest point of the neutral range before it would become positive. So our strengths were physical surroundings, social support for adults, and sense of physical security. Areas of growth that every year we seem to kind of linger right around the low threes is sense of social emotional security, social media, and then social and civic learning, which students only ranked at the high end of the neutral range. One of the talking points that we want to kind of dive a little bit deeper in is that sense of social and civic learning, that there seems to be a little bit of a gap, and again, we're talking the high end of the neutral range compared to positive, between the way students perceive social and civic learning and the way our personnel perceive them actually using social and civic learning within inside the classroom. So students ranked it at a 3.5 while our personnel ranked it at a 3.9. So that gap has been pretty consistent for 4 years, and I think it's something that we can dive into a little bit more. And then there are subsections of our student population that do not rate elements of our high school as high as the general population. So one being, there was a question put into the CSCI 2 years ago that kind of focused more on the LGBTQ community. That subsection ranked some more aspects in the neutral range compared to the general population. Also, our African American population ranked more into the neutral range than our general population. So those are also some subsects that we want to be aware of, that we want to talk about, that we want to work on even more. As Patrick was saying, the IYS was the third survey. That mainly relates more to drug and alcohol, even though there is some mental health questions that are put into that. And we were not going to receive that probably until about June, and then we're going to partner with LEAD like we've done, because the IYS is every other year. We always partner with LEAD on it, and we come up with some really good cohort numbers, and we will present that probably at some point at the beginning of next year. So as Patrick was also saying, it takes a village. So we've done a lot with LEAD. With the APT has been spectacular over the years with us. LEAD, we had Andy Duran come in and do a vaping presentation to our students. We had, I believe, about 60 to 70% of our students go to that presentation, and all the statistics and all the feedback said that 90% of them learned something new about it. We had some really good numbers show up, and I think also in conjunction with the work we've done with the village, as far as doing an ordinance in which it is illegal to have any kind of a vaporizer, any kind of materials under the age of 18, has really, I think, hit home. So I think a combination of the work we've done within the school and also the work we've done with the village has really done a great job in decreasing the number of incidents that we've seen with vaporizers or e-cigarettes. The APT, again, has worked with us, and I'll hit that on the bottom with a number of our events. The Art Impact Project, which was just in the Lake Forest Leader, is a great part of our health and well-being class. Instead of a final at the semester, they put together masks, and what they do is they kind of show on the outside what they want people to see, and they cut out drawings and letters and different things that represent what they want people to see on the outside, and they do the same, except on the inside is what people don't see. and they're all hanging in our commons. It is a really great project that we've worked for years on, and Deborah Ann Reiner has left that. Erica's Lighthouse, we've had come in, and then Croria, our work with Croria is crucial. We do peer training, and we do 6 classes of that, which is how to be an active listener, how to help a friend. We do 6 classes of that each semester, and then this year for the first time we've done Peer Advanced, which we've trained junior leaders who are what we call Sherpas, and they go in and they train those who have already taken peer training, and they take those same topics that are more advanced though now, and they do just student-to-student groups. So there's not an adult in the room. These students, leaders have been trained. It's been part of our peer mentoring program. We're really proud of it. It went really well this semester. We had 3 different classes going, and we plan to build off of that for next year.
John, before you leave
Yeah.
that, are you still talking about this slide?
Yes.
I have a question for you before you change slides.
No problem. And then mindfulness stress reduction. So Matt Dewar, Dr. Dewar, he is one of our English teachers. He is also a teacher facilitator now. He is certified in mindful-based stress reduction, has gone into about 60 different classrooms, everything from AP classes to below those, and also working with a lot of our athletic teams from swimming to field hockey to basketball, and has gone in there and worked with them on mindful-based stress reduction. He even came to our staff meeting, I think it was a year ago, and did it, or at the beginning of this year, and did it with the entire staff. So that was pretty cool. So again, plan on building on that. It even got to a point that 6 or 7 students went to him and wanted to start kind of a club of stress reduction. So they would go to him once a week and just work on the mindful-based workings. And last, our well-being events. In conjunction with the APT, we just had our walk on May 1st. Thank God it was 85 degrees and sunny. I don't know how that happened, but we had 3 food trucks, we had a gelato cart outside, we had a DJ, and we passed out about 2,000 t-shirts and did a 2-mile walk, and it was extremely successful, and it couldn't have been done without my team of parents, team of moms from the APT. They're just amazing. We also did 5 different scout event days, which include, we get our football coaches to do smoking meats, so they come in and they smoke meats all night. They stay the night, and they come up the next morning, and there's a line out the door, and they give samples, and it's just kind of something fun. We've had DJs come in. We actually did a scout circus in which we had Ella Farms come in with some animals, and just had a balloon person, and just did some really fun stuff. Again, just trying to show that Lake Forest, even though we're so academically prominent, that we just need to take some time for ourselves and work on our social emotional piece. Yes.
On the CSCI report, your item C, where there are subsections of the student population that don't rate the elements as highly, and you had made reference specifically to 2 populations.
Yes.
Are you able to see, you mentioned that they averaged at the neutral, but were you seeing a really wide distribution, so you were seeing some really negative numbers in those populations?
We were seeing some lower neutral numbers. I don't think any of them really, there might have been one part that got into the negative area in that very subsection. They all leveled out to in the neutral range, but I think they were mainly lower neutral, which is the reason why even for this, I think the one subsection was even like a 3.4, like it was in the high neutral range.
I guess I was trying to understand if it was a very wide distribution that averaged to neutral, or if it was still clustered in neutral but lower.
It was still clustered in neutral but lower. Yeah.
I have one question too,
Sure.
and I'm sure I should know the answer to this, but under the CSCI on B, what is social and civic learning?
So social and civic learning, and I can actually give you the exact definition. In the CSCI, it is defined as support for the development of social and civic knowledge, skills, and dispositions, including effective listening, conflict resolution, self-reflection, and emotional regulation, empathy, personal responsibility, and ethical decision-making. So quite a lot of things, and actually, a number of those things are all clumped together in our in the SCL standards for the state of Illinois. So the fact that, and what Patrick will be getting into also is the fact that we're working so much with our wellness classes, in particular on our SEL standards, I think is a great talking point for the fact that our personnel seem to really feel higher-wise that they're really teaching this, they're showing this, they're working with students on this. Students, which is still a 3.5 is the highest part of our neutral range, still there's a 0.4 difference. And it's a matter of, are we not being explicit enough? Do we need to do a little bit more work on those SEL standards? Particularly, the emotional regulation part is something that we've been working on, and something that actually Patrick can talk about. We had a PD on with emotional dysregulation and how to work with that. So, again, talking points, things that we are seeing, things that we want to continue to work on. No problem.
So I'll just wrap up here with a quick summary of next steps. So what we know, what we know are some things that really move the needle when it comes to prevention and wellness amongst adolescents. Starts with evidence-based curriculum aligned to standards. And as I alluded to early on, the freshman curriculum has embedded the Illinois State SEL standards into the curriculum. Next year, the sophomore wellness curriculum, which has already been revised to embed, to further align to the SEL standards, will be implemented. So those goals will be embedded within the sophomore wellness curriculum. And then our goal for the 18-19 school year is to further embed wellness programming with the SEL standards, but also to look cross-curricularly at the different curriculums that possibly already have some of the standards aligned and embedded within their curriculum, but also to review where we could begin to embed SEL standards in our social sciences curriculum, our English curriculum, if they're not already there, through the activities and the curriculum that they use. Secondly, community partnerships, utilizing evidence-based prevention messaging and healthy activities, alternative activities around school events. So we'll continue to partner with LEAD, continue to partner with the aforementioned groups, looking at ways when we, Andy Duran has already offered Vaping 3.0 to start the year off with that messaging both for students and for families. We will partner with LEAD, as John mentioned, to review our IYS data and plan next steps around that, and then working with our community agencies to identify healthy activities that we can align to those larger school events. How can we provide alternative activities for after football games, for after the school dances, and after prom as well. And then lastly, the professional development of our staff. As John mentioned, we had a multitude of professional development activities for our staff this year. Creating inclusive and culturally responsive classroom environments was a 3-session PD opportunity. Safe Spaces was a 3-session staff development opportunity. And then, as John alluded to, Dr. Doug Bolton came in from North Shore Academy, also for an inclusive environment and creating safe space professional development for staff. Most of those professional development opportunities were staff delivered, which really hits the mark when our staff are hearing from one another. And then just continued work with the mindfulness and peer advanced. So that's the summary of our next steps, and I'll take some questions.
I have another question. My recollection from the results of the Illinois Youth Survey the last time around was that we were not seeing measurable improvement in alcohol and drug use. And I recognize that we're waiting for those results. Is there anything in the surveys that were done this year that would give us any indications that the focus on that has moved the needle?
No problem. Neither of the other surveys really speak directly to drug and alcohol, so it would be unfair to try to find the correlation between the two. What we hope, though, is to find some correlations between some of our real positive numbers and hopefully an improvement that we're going to see, because we have done a lot of work around it. But as you said, 2 years ago, our numbers did slightly go down after having improved 4 years ago. So, it's a matter of trying to figure out also what's going on with the LEAD seeing this a lot. We talk a lot with LEAD, and they're seeing, especially 2 years ago when the medical marijuana, becoming legal, was on the verge of becoming legal at that time, and there was a lot of communication out about the how it wasn't that harmful to you and the positiveness. Schools all around, because LEAD works with other schools too, saw all their numbers start to jump up. So, there's a lot more than just what we're trying to do within the building. There's, the public effect of what's happening around the state. So we don't have those numbers. It's hard to compare right now, but as soon as we get them, we're definitely going to work with LEAD and let you guys know where we're at. Okay.
One last question. Was the basketball team, Drew, did you get to do the mindfulness presentation?
Yes, we did.
And could you give us your quick thoughts on Dr. Dwar and what you learned?
Yes, we did it before the playoffs, like 2 or 3 times beforehand. And it's really focusing on like when you're hit with adverse situations. Like he did it with sports teams, but it's really you can like apply it to like the rest of your life. It's like when you get are confronted with like adverse situations where like you could like see yourself like losing control or like getting overwhelmed by the moment. You like take the time to step back and like consider like, oh no, like I'm still in control. Like I'm like still able to do what I need to do and not let all these like outside things affect me and still focus on what I can do. And the way he does that is like through like breathing and like taking the time to calm down and know that you can like stay within yourself, and that's it was actually pretty helpful, like getting your like mind right before a more stressful time in the season in your life.
Thank you very much. Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
You could answer that a lot better than I can, so. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great report. Come a long way. Thank you. Shayla, Mike, John, Patrick. Just one thing, not a question, more a statement. John, you heard me say this. The activities of the professional development are great for changing a culture, raising awareness. I would encourage you to do as much hands-on, in-your-face, interactive stuff. I was really encouraged at an education committee meeting where I heard Shayla, Tim Burkhalter, Michaeline talk about, figuring out a way to get these kids that aren't involved in extracurriculars, and it was a real on-the-ground, tactical approach to, finding out who knew these kids' brothers and sisters, and then just figuring out what's going on in their lives. Our teachers know our kids. All the teachers that my kids have had knew my kids. They got to know them in a way. So I would encourage you to just reach out as much as you can. Great work. Committee reports, Education Committee. Lise.
Well, Reese gave a nice little preview. This was our last meeting of the academic year, and so I want to begin. We thanked 2 outgoing community members, Sharon Scott and Judith Arnstein, and so that reminds me to tell the community that we will be looking for a replacement member this summer, and we'll put the news out on the website for how to apply for anybody who's interested. We had 2 presentations at this last meeting. One was by Dean Michaeline Tomek and the athletic director Tim Burkhalter, who reported, just as Reese was saying, about student engagement in extracurricular activities. So you may not know, but we have, as part of our goals, a strategic plan that all Lake Forest High School students will participate in extracurricular activities, clubs, or sports equal to or greater than the number of years enrolled at Lake Forest High School. So that would be 1 for a freshman, 2 for a sophomore, 3 for a junior, collected over your 4 years. And that's a pretty low number for many of our students. Most students are engaged in more than that, but But it's the students that aren't engaged at all that we really want to find and help them get plugged into the school community. And so Michaeline and Tim have identified only 11% of students who fit into that category, 170. So it's nice that that's a low number, but it's still 170 students that we want to get more involved. And they really have, like you said, been on the ground through teachers and counselors and friends and any way possible, any point of contact to talk to these kids and figure out what they might be interested in. And we heard both at this meeting and a previous meeting about the new Special Olympics that Lake Forest High School will be hosting, and that's another great opportunity for students to get involved. And then we moved on. Our second presentation was by Jim Sullivan, the assistant principal, and he talked about the career connection objectives that he's in charge of, and that includes making sure that students are familiar with the various career sectors. It turns out there's all the careers in the world can be divided into 16 sectors, if you didn't know. And we want to be sure our students are aware of all of them and finding ways through the curriculum and extracurricular activities to become familiar with those. The school held its first career fair this year, which many of us were able to attend and was very successful. Over 600 students participated. And another big piece of this is the Open Doors job shadowing program, which has a little bit lower involvement. 236 students, mostly freshmen and sophomores, are involved. And these are great little mini internships or job shadowing experiences. So part of our discussion revolved around, if we don't just make it mandatory for students to have some kind of shadowing, what about building it into the curriculum? And it could be part of your course requirements to have shadowing or internship experience, because you really don't know till you walk in somebody's shoes what a certain career is like. So very informative meeting, and we'll pick up again. I think it's early October will be our first meeting for the next year.
Dave, Finance and Ops.
Thanks, Reese. So we met in early April, or mid-April, I should say, and the primary purpose of the we had a good meeting. The primary purpose of the meeting was to discuss the year-end projections and how we were coming on towards our budget for the fiscal year. The good news is that we are coming in under our budget. We had a series of different savings come in, which offset some of the more expensive aspects of our budget. So as a reminder to the rest of the board, we had planned a budget that was going to draw down our reserves while supplying more services to different areas that we deemed really critical to the grand plan. We're still drawing down some of the reserves, but over $1 million better than we had originally planned. So that's a really good and big achievement for Jen and her team, which is great. Those projections are now being used to shape and look at the plan for next year. So the hope is that we're able to achieve a lot of the good stuff and continue the direction that we are going in terms of these new services and needs and advancing all the different interests that the grand plan called for. But we're hoping to do so, or checking into doing so, without having drawn down the reserves. That remains to be seen. We'll see what we can do. There are a lot of variables. There's certain things like transportation costs that are spiking right now. Different students coming in and out of the district that have different requirements and needs that affect the budget. All of those things remain to be seen. We'll be looking at it. In addition to the budget this year and the planning for next year's budget, we talked about a variety of different capital projects. There are capital projects that we must do as part of building maintenance, things like roofs and windows and some of the different athletic facilities that must be repaired are attended to where there is not an option. There's other ones that may not need to be addressed now, but will have to be addressed in time. And we looked at all those various things. Carol White had a good summary of what the must-do now and what would be nice to do and what are optionals. We're going to continue to look at that. Jen and her team will come back with a full presentation. But there's a lot of different maintenance that has to go on across these different facilities, and so we discussed that. And then we also discussed a different financial model for next year, where we see different spending and performance to plan and things that Jen's been working on with her team. So we'll look at that too, and we'll share the progress on that as we go along. So a good productive meeting. When's our next meeting, Jen? Do you remember? Yeah, June 26th, I think. I thought I had it written down, but I didn't. At any rate, at the end of June, we'll be gathering to see how our budget really is coming together and how the different state activities and whatnot are shading all that. Jen, is there anything else that you wanted to add? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Policy Committee? Diana, Ted? Never really sure what you guys. Oh, cool. All right, liaison report. Ed Red, Sally? I've been reading stuff, but I'm not sure how much.
Oh, friends, we're heading into an election. Absolutely nothing is happening. So continue to read your updates, but there's some really cool things being introduced. I genuinely don't think any of them are going to come to a vote or pass, so I won't go into it. I would like to say Dr. Elliott and I participated in the career fair, the very first one. Super fun. Big kudos to Dr. Holland and to Mr. Sullivan for the incredible amount of work they did. It was as much to bring in, I think, potential employers for internships as it was to get the students engaged. And it was really well received, and the kids were terrific to talk to. And all of us agreed that we need to have something as cool as the police and the military folks who were having push-up contests. And I felt that they really were drawing off a lot of people who are not as interested in corporate law, but we are going to bring it next year. We're very excited.
We may get a dog. I heard the police may get a dog. Then you're dead. Can't beat a dog. Yeah. Okay, NSSED, Ted?
Oh, yeah, this button works. Anyway, I'll start from the beginning. We met last Wednesday, and we awarded 4 scholarships for students that are pursuing college work in the area of special education. And I'm happy to report that Leanna Wisniewski from Lake Forest High School was awarded one of the scholarships. She's going to be studying special education at Miami of Ohio. Other big news is we're almost complete with our purchase of the Rublev building, which is the largest building on the campus. It's been a negotiation for quite some time, and a very fair price. It was $1.35 million for a building that was appraised at over $2 million. So it's everybody wins. This coming Saturday, May 19th, the NSSED Foundation is having their 5K run, and I'd like to, that's also at the Highland Park campus, and I'd like to recognize Illinois Bone and Joint is the title sponsor for this event, and that starts at 8 o'clock this coming Saturday. And just for plug, if everybody that runs and needs to be refreshed later in the day, the Lake Forest Lake Bluff Lions are sponsoring a wine tasting at Iowa Farms that evening, and the title sponsor for that is Terlato Wines. So I guess I'm really, beating up on my fellow board members. So then, also kind of a big change at NSSED. Our average daily enrollment is forecast to decrease next year from 408 to 350. And the main reason for that is quite a few schools, such as Lake Forest High School, are bringing more of their programs in-house and, realizing that, as we build capacity, the least restrictive environment is in the local campus, where, their peers are, and it appears to be working really well. So it is a significant shift in the way NSSED does business. And that's all I have.
Next up are action items. Oh, yeah, you're not on my list. Foundation, APT, boosters. Sorry, Diana.
That's okay. I know you didn't want to skip them. Exciting things in the booster world. Tonight, they are voting on their Outstanding Senior Athlete Awards. The applications were due April 20th, and today they are vetting and will come up with 4 winners. They have summer camp grants, which are available for current freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. It's up to $150 if you want to go to a summer camp. Basically, they come in, they interview the week of May 14th during lunch with Booster Club members, and they write a letter after they go to the camp. And last year, they did 120 interviews and awarded those students money towards their summer camps. And the Booster Bash, which I told you all about, the numbers are being finalized. It was very, very successful, and they raised over $4,000 more than last year. So kudos to them, and all that money, of course, will go back to the sports teams. The foundation had a lot going on. Sally and I attended the spring luncheon with Lise. Yes, we had a threesome. They split us up, of course. Anyway, they held their 8th annual luncheon on Wednesday, April 18th at Exmoor. And this year's theme was Celebrating Educational Excellence, and they had 160 guests. And they raised $70,000 that will go back to future grants in support of academics and educational excellence at the high school. The cool part about the luncheon this year was they had speakers. They had 2 people from the art department, Carolyn Bielski and Jennifer Thomas, and they talked about how the grants are being used in the art department. There were some new cameras and graphic design, animation programs, and we got to kind of see some student work, which was really fun. And then second, Joe Pulio from the business department and Janelle Freevert, was a graduate in 2017, talked about the business incubator plan, and then Janelle talked about specifically how her business that she created has taken off and kind of how she's doing it in college and still doing very well with it. So it was really neat to hear. Pitch night is coming up within the foundation. It's going to take place Friday, June 1st at 7 o'clock. And that's the culmination of the business incubator class. And they have a Shark Tank style format, and they are hoping to receive funding that will allow them to move their businesses forward. Lastly, the APT. They are revamping the talent show to be more viable for both participants and volunteers, and they're meeting with student groups to get their feedback and to try to figure out what they can do going forward. So if anyone out there is interested in being part of the talent show, they would like to talk to you in any way, shape, or form. A highlight, puppy cuddling will be returning during exams, so if you have a puppy, be sure to let Liz Gescheidel know, and if you're a student, prepare for the puppy attack. They're working on publicity to increase awareness of what APT does. You saw earlier when Mr. Maher and Patrick Sessions presented that's a lot of the things that the APT does, and so they're just trying to create more awareness for what their programs are and what they're trying to raise money for. And lastly, they will be giving out 10 senior contribution awards at Honors Night on the 30th of May. Oh, and lastly, they participated in Teacher Appreciation Week and brought breakfast burritos, which apparently were a big hit. So lots going on in the volunteer parental world.
So next up are the action items, the meat of our meeting. First up is approval of our 2018-2019 staff compensation. May I have a motion to approve the 2018-2019 staff compensation?
I'll move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the 2018-19 staff compensation.
Second?
Second.
So we've had a lot of discussion around this in our executive sessions for the last several months. So any other comments, questions? Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mrs. Kreiling?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up is adoption of a resolution determining student residency. Could somebody speak to that, just to get it on the record?
Jen, would you like to summarize that for us here?
Sure. We have a policy. This is a school in which that you need to live within our attendance and our boundary areas in order to enjoy the benefits of being a student. We do investigate any information that we receive that if we have families or students that are attending that are indeed not residents at the start of the school year. You can move out of the district at a later point and continue, but you do have to be a resident at the start of the school year. So we do investigations on these periodically, and what you have before you is a result of a hearing in which we went in front of a hearing officer along with the parents to present our information regarding residency and looking for the board to take action on whether or not they believed the students in question were indeed residents or whether they were not residents.
Thank you. Ted, were you going to say something? Oh, you're just getting your mic ready. Okay, may I have a motion to adopt the resolution determining student residency as recommended by the residency hearing officer?
Reese?
I move that the Lake Forest community.
Well, I think from the moment of our session, we should clarify, obviously in the bucket, there's the two resolutions, which one we're accepting.
Yeah, I was
first and the
gonna do
second,
that.
but also okay.
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education adopt the resolution determining student residency as recommended by the residency hearing officer, which denies the residency, and it would also be with an effective date of Friday, June 8, 2018.
Is that clear, Tom? Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, no, right. I just wanted to
Right.
make sure we did.
Yeah, we had two options.
Something that we.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or discussion?
I guess just in discussion, I know with the board, it was a very difficult decision, but we do have to follow the law, and it's only appropriate and fair that the taxpayers of the Lake Forest contiguous school district boundaries fund our students within the said boundaries.
Agree with all that. And the staff, the administrative staff did everything right. The investigation was conducted appropriately. Our questions, my issues had to do with identification process. So that will be reflected in my vote. So we've had a second. Is there any other discussion or comments? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Markison?
No.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
I'd just like to add that part of our discussion involved being sure that the identification of residency is fully equitable going forward. So that's something the board has a lot of interest in.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up is approval of an ECRA contract renewal through June of 2019 for $36,900. May I have a motion to approve the ECRA contract?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the ACRA contract renewal through June 2019 in the amount of $36,900.
Second.
Any discussion?
I do have one comment. We've talked a lot about the protection of student personally identifying information. I'm very satisfied with the protections that are in the agreement. When Jordan Salas was hired as the information officer for the district, we spent a lot of time during his initial report to the board talking about that. The one thing that continues to concern me is that we built into that contract the right to audit ECRA, and at the time when I asked Jordan the question, he had said, we have not exercised that right. I want to once again say, I feel strongly that either we should go in and audit their security, confidentiality, privacy practices, or we should ask them to provide us with some third-party audit results to that effect.
Thank you. I forgot where we were in the process. Did we have a motion, though? A motion second. May I have a roll? Any other comments or discussion? Good point, Sally. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Carling?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next up is approval of our tennis courts resurfacing bid in the amount of $683,900. May I have a motion to approve the tennis court resurfacing, please?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the tennis courts resurfacing bid in the amount of $683,900.
Second?
Second.
Jen, is this in line with the amount that we approved?
So we had 600,000 as a placeholder in our capital projects budget. Now, within this 629,900 is $64,000 worth of allowance for poor soils. If the soils end up a little better than expected, we'll get that credit back, so we could be as low as 565. If they are as we expect, we'll probably be close to the 629.
So what's the 683 then, if we voted?
You've already previously approved 54,000 of architect fees.
50, the architect.
Total project.
My favorite, yeah. Okay. Any other comments, discussion? Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mrs. Carling?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Nay.
Dr. Nemekis?
Nay.
Motion carries.
Next up is approval of an Authentic Expressions contract. I know you explained what this is in the packet, but could you explain the nature of the contract?
I can. This is a contract for assistive technology. Assistive technology is utilized for students. This could be a student with hearing impairment, with a visual impairment, with expressive disorders or difficulties of some kind. And so these are services to tailor students' abilities to express themselves and also to receive information utilizing technology. And this is a very specialized service that we are going out and contracting for.
Okay.
And just another question. I know it's up to $35,000, but we haven't really expressed the need yet. So is there an hourly rate that we're paying?
Is the question, I'm sorry, Ted, I didn't understand the question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I got to make sure I'm on the right one. Hang on, let me make sure I'm asking the right question.
Looks like it's $125 an hour.
Oh, yeah, okay. Never mind.
I had a question about this and the educational consulting contract that's next. Both of them state that the cost will be paid through an Individual with Disability Education Act grant. Does that mean there's no cost to the district?
It means that we are utilizing our grant dollars for that. So in this case, I'll let Shayla. You might have a more granular discussion of this, but it's not exactly that simple, I don't think. But go ahead.
We have, IDEA is one grant similar to our title grants. Each grant, IDEA, is specific to students with disabilities. And so when thinking about the needs of our kids, there are certain areas that the grant will cover, and these are two areas. We we deliver a lot of our services, a lot of our support services through our grant dollars based on the students who are identified with a variety of different needs. And so when the grants are written, we write in the cost for these consultants, so that's how it's paid.
What's the total amount of the grant?
Do you have it varies every year, and there's a formula that's used based on the number of students identified for special education services.
I don't know if this is Lisa's question, but if we're, without these two contracts, if we were already getting $1 million, so if the cost of these is $95,000, are we going to get $1,095,000? Or are we going to get, are these fully reimbursed, or are we just going to get a percentage of these costs? You don't know?
I don't know how, I don't handle the financial aspects of what gets reimbursed in terms of the money.
Right, so we don't handle the grant writing, so they could have written in all of this cost, and I would assume by the way she framed her sentence, that all of that cost was included in that grant. But I think kind of to your question, could they have utilized those grant funds on other things? Probably. But I think they make a determinations within the grants, one, within the rules and regulations of what you can use the grant for, and based on the students that are identified, on how best to allocate those funds among the various supports.
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. Yes, she wrote all of this into the grant to eliminate a cost to the district directly. But again, grants are written based on the needs of students, and in order for us to be able to deliver these services, we have two options. One, to build it into the district budget. Another option is to utilize the grants, which is why they are created, for districts to be able to ensure that we deliver services to students who need them.
Still, so there's no out-of-pocket costs to the district for these two expenses?
If she's built all 60,000, looking at this one, for example, into the grant, then no, there's not. We don't, they're not employees, we don't pay benefits or anything like that. They're a straight-up independent contractor.
I think my hesitance in trying to accurately answer that is that while these dollars will be utilized for these two things, they aren't then utilized for other things that might wind up being costs to the district. And so I'm just trying to be clear about the answer. So within the grant, strictly speaking, the entire costs of these things are covered by that grant. But there are many things that we could have used that grant for that then that are our costs to the district, right?
I have one more question about the grant. So is this something we apply for every year and we almost always get, or is it a grant that you put in and you hope and pray that it'll be funded?
Now, these are what are known as special ed dollars, and so these are dollars that we absolutely will get every year. What they are not is what the district has been promised by the federal government as to offset the costs of educating students. So we wind up getting, the rate is about 15%, and the federal government promised you 40%.
Okay, so I think we're still on the Authentic Expressions contract. May I have a motion to approve the Authentic Expressions contract?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve Authentic Expressions contract.
Second?
Second.
Any other comments, questions specifically on this one? No? May I have a roll call, please?
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thanks. Next up, approval of GL Educational Consulting Contract for $60,000. May I have a motion to approve the consulting contract?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the GL Educational Consulting Contract for an approximate total of $60,000.
Second?
Second.
Okay, one question. The rate, Well, first question on the 500 hours, what does that mean? It was mentioned a couple of times that this person can only work 500 hours.
So she is limited in attending whatever sorts of meetings that she has, whether that be travel or whatnot, that it is for up to that amount, not to exceed it. I don't know if there is any sort of magic related to the 500 hours.
I think what Reese was referring to, the 500-hour limit, is somebody who's receiving a pension from the state of Illinois can only work 500 hours before it affects their pension.
This is their or it would,
yes.
So if she gets paid by the district, it'll reduce her pension.
So she can't double dip.
Yeah, that only applies if she's an actual employee. She can work as many hours as an independent contractor or consultant. And she could work for other entities as well. She could be working thousands of hours, I don't know.
So the 500 hours limit doesn't have to do with
As
anything?
If you're working as an employee for an institution.
It was in our packet. It said that she could only work 500 hours, but. So how is the rate determined? Comp, just seems high, $120 an hour.
It's actually pretty fair and on the lower end for the types of services that are being provided. She provides, a lot of districts have full-time professionals who work with a district around students who are outplaced or have extenuating needs. Of course, this is very time-intensive, it's very sensitive, and a lot of hands-on work with families and students, as well as the places students are going, to make sure it's an appropriate fit. She navigates that entire landscape on behalf of our district with our administrators to make sure families receive the services they're supposed to, as well as engaging in ongoing day-to-day communication with the facilities. Part of it is when students are outplaced, we want to keep that line of communication open to make sure they know that they're still our students. We're hands-on, like our administrators go and visit students when possible, unless they're out of state. But it requires a lot of support and a lot of work.
Is she currently working for the district now?
Yes, she is.
Okay, so how many years has she been employed? It's just she never exceeded the contractual threshold? Is that why we're reviewing this now?
I believe it's up every year for renewal.
Oh.
The grant is written every year, and this contract will, if we
Okay.
we continue to work with her, it'll come up every year.
All right, I apologize. Just don't remember it. Okay, any other comments, questions?
I do have one. Presumably, we wouldn't renew it if it hadn't been a good fit. Do you or Jenny Sturpin get a sense of whether or not the families have had a good experience working with this consultant? Do you get that feedback?
She doesn't operate outside of our work with her, so it's not like she's off on her own working with our families. We're very much involved in her day-to-day work, and we would not have had some of the success that we've had with our families without this type of attention paid to their needs.
Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Mormon?
Oh, didn't we get a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up is approval of our board meeting dates. You'll note that all the meetings have been moved to Mondays. And I may have missed this last month, but we only have 10 meetings. Did we cut out a meeting, or was there always only 10 meetings?
Yes, the recommendation is that we do not have a meeting in January. And
Guys cool with
also, there's also a meeting for this board, it's the August meeting, and for the elementary board, it's the July meeting, the summer meeting that they're not going to hold.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the board meeting dates?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the 2018-2019 Board of Education meeting dates.
Second?
Second.
Any comments, thoughts? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up is approval of our treasurer appointment. May I have a motion to approve the treasurer appointment?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the treasurer appointment.
Second?
Any comments, thoughts? May I have a roll
Go
call?
Jen.
Go Jen. May I have a-
I disagree with Jen's handwriting for treasurer on her salary. I'd like to keep it at the other number.
0. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott? Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up is approval of Press Issue 97, first reading. Anyone from the Policy Committee wants to say about this, or is it pretty self-explanatory from the policy? Okay,
They were
approve.
basically just updates.
Updates. May I have a motion to approve the first reading of Press Issue 97 as stated?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the first reading of Press Issue 97, including 2:260 Uniform Grievance Procedure, 4:40 Incurring Debt, 5:20 Workplace Harassment Prohibited, 5:200 Conditions of Employment and Dismissal.
Thank you. Second?
Second?
Any comments? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon? Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Our Human Resources Report, may I have a motion to approve the Human Resources Report as presented?
I move Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the Human Resources Report as presented.
Second?
Second.
Lots of stuff on there because of the time of year. Any comments, thoughts, questions?
Sad to see Austin Scott go.
Very sad. But he got a head coaching job at Hershey. That's what I heard. Cool. Good for him. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon? Dr. Elliott? Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next up are the consent agenda items. I'll remind the board that any item can be removed at the request of any board member. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items, including the approval of disbursements, payrolls, and financial statements for March 2018, minutes of a regular meeting and workshop from April 9th, 2018, minutes of an executive session also from April 9th, 2018, and disposal of audio recordings from May 9th, 2016.
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second?
Second.
Any comments, thoughts? No? May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott? Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon? Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We had 3 FOIA requests, one from the Shriver Center, a commercial request. That is complete. NBC5, also a commercial request. That is complete. And Janice Schnobrick, a resident, that request is also complete. Several announcements. AP testing started today, 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th. Saturday, May 19th, will be a climate change symposium at 4 p.m. at the RMA. Monday, May 21st, there will be a choral concert at 7:30 at the RMA. Wednesday, May 23rd, will be a band concert at 7:30 at the RMA. The Music Award banquet is 6 p.m. in the cafeteria on Thursday, May 24th. May 28th is Memorial Day, no school. May 30th is the orchestra concert. The day before the last day of school, that's at 7:30 in the RMA. Senior final exams on May 30th and 31st. Study hard. It matters. Finals for everybody else are June 5th, 6th, and 7th. And the last day of school for all students other than seniors will be Thursday, June 7th. Faculty Workday on the 8th. Graduation on the front lawn, guaranteed, right? Guaranteed, even we've had more rain already, we've got to be done, right? Although the gym, I liked the gym. That was a really nice, you didn't like it? It was nice. I mean, the field house was nice, but you want to be on the front lawn.
Let the record reflect Reese has cursed the date.
No, I didn't, because we guaranteed it that year. Graduation on June 9th at 2:30 on the front lawn, and our next meeting is June 11th, right here, 7 p.m. in this same room. We have a motion to adjourn the Lake Forest Community High School Board meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.